Welcome to Sleepy Scientist, where science gently meets serenity. Tonight's journey is called The Sleeping Heart of Earth, and it's made just for you. If your mind feels heavy, your body tired, or your heart a little worn, you're not alone. You've come to the right place, and this video will help you slow down, breathe deep, and finally rest. I truly believe this story will guide you softly into sleep, peacefully and naturally. But before we begin, let me know in the comments where you're watching from, your country or city. It truly helps me stay motivated and create even more magical, calming videos for you. I know how hard nights can be, how loud the mind gets when the world goes quiet. That's why I'm here, to bring you comfort through science and rest through wonder. So, settle in, take a deep breath, and let's begin. You begin here, not in the stars or the sky, but deep beneath your resting body. The ground you lie upon is not still, not truly. Beneath carpets and floors, under stone and soil, the earth lives with ancient patience. You may not feel it now, not with your heartbeat slowing and your breath softening into sleep, but a world of motion unfolds below. Imagine drifting downward, gently patting your skin, not falling but floating, not fluttering but floating. And beloved, breath is a sound, not falling but floating. And beloved, breath is a sound, not falling but floating. And beloved, not floating but floating. And beloved, not floating but floating. And beloved, not floating but through the quiet layers of earth. Each layer welcomes you with warmth. The first is cool, scattered with roots and stones, echoing with tiny insect feet and the hush of underground water. But you continue, slowly sinking, deeper still. The crust, Earth's outermost skin, stretches thin, just a fragile eggshell compared to all that lies beneath. And underneath, the mantle breathes. Yes, it breathes, not with lungs, but with heat, with movements so slow it takes millions of years to shift. Yet shift it does. Rock flows like honey here, though you must imagine time slowed to a crawl, a motion you feel more than see, like the tide beneath still water. This is where Earth's warmth lives, not from the sun above, but from within, a memory of its birth. 4.5 billion years ago, our planet formed from chaos. Dust colliding, heat rising, gravity pulling all into a molten sphere. That heat has never truly left. It pulses below your feet like a sleeping heartbeat. You drift toward it, not to the burning center, but toward the idea of it. The core, buried some 6,000 kilometers below the surface, hums like a drum no one can touch. Its outer shell is liquid metal, mostly iron and nickel, swirling in slow storms. These molten waves generate something wondrous. Earth's magnetic field, a soft shield that wraps around you, a sluice waved with a simple swarm. These molten waves generate something wondrous. Earth's magnetic field, a soft shield that wraps around you, deflecting harmful solar winds and cosmic particles. Every compass points to it, every migrating bird feels it. You are protected by something you cannot see. Further still lies the inner core, solid, dense, hot as the surface of the sun, yet still. No human has ever been there, no machine has touched it, but you can imagine it now, a glowing pearl at the center of a planet, spinning within its own shell, unseen yet steady, a symbol of Earth's quiet strength. Above all this, plate tectonics unfold the slow drifting of continents riding the liquid mantle. Invisible to you now, but over lifetimes it reshapes oceans and raises mountains. Africa and South America once nestled like puzzle pieces. India drifted northward to crash into Asia, gliding the Himalayas. You may not notice it, but the very ground beneath you is on a long journey, gliding centimeters each year like a raft on lava. This motion builds tension. Sometimes it releases in a quake, sometimes in a breath of steam, and sometimes it releases in a quake, sometimes it releases in a birth of steam, and sometimes it releases in a birth of steam, and sometimes it releases over eons. Pressure gathers in pockets of molten rock. These are not yet volcanoes. They are dreams waiting to rise. You are surrounded by warmth, by pressure, by time itself slowed to a whisper. Here, in the heart of Earth, nothing is in a hurry. Everything takes its turn. Everything waits. The silence you feel is not emptiness. It is potential. And you, tiny and tender upon the surface, are part of this great, slow breath. Your body carries minerals born of Earth's depths, iron in your blood, sandy soils in your stomach. Your heart is a solid mass in a system that needs slow breath. Iron in your blood, calcium in your bones. You are made of stars, tough, yes, but also of stone and heat and patient fire. Now imagine the earth not as a rock, but as a being, ancient, sleeping, dreaming in silence. Volcanoes, earthquakes, mountains. These are not random. They are expressions, moments when this quiet heart stirs just slightly, as if turning in sleep. You lie still, and yet your world moves. The stillness of night above, mirrors despite, mountains. You seek it, you find it there, but not of itself. The stillness of night above, mirrors, but both are alive with motion we cannot always see. When a volcano erupts, it is not a surprise. It is the end of a long conversation deep within the crust, a conversation between pressure and rock, between time and heat. Tonight, as you listen, as your muscles soften and your mind slows, know that you are resting on something vast and kind. The earth does not rush. It has no schedule. Its rhythms are longer than our lives, its memory older than all history, and yet it holds you gently. You sleep on a planet that is alive, alive not with chaos but with balance, with slowness, with dreams written in magma. This is the sleeping heart of Earth, a breath held, a whisper deep below, not in fear, not in warning, but in wonder. As you begin to let go of your day, you might wonder, when does the breath rise? When does this ancient stillness begin to stir? Perhaps it starts with a single exhale, a plume of heat, a rising thread of molten thought, a volcano waking. Let us drift now into that breath, that visible exhale. Let us meet the places where earth shows you its fire, where the quiet becomes a glowing song. Let us follow the breath to where volcanoes bloom. You lie still, wrapped in your blanket, yet under you earth stirs, not in haste, not in alarm, but with purpose, with rhythm, like a breath being drawn. Now imagine this breath rising from deep within the mantle. Molten rock begins its long ascent. It is not sudden, it is slow, deliberate, like a thought forming in a dream. The rock, heated by pressure, softened by time, turns to magma. It gathers in pockets, hidden reservoirs beneath the crust. Turn to the crust, pressurized by time, turns to magma. It gathers in pockets, hidden reservoirs beneath the crust. Turn to the crust, waiting in warmth. This is how a volcano is born. A volcano is Earth's way of releasing what it cannot hold. When pressure builds, when magma grows restless, it looks for a path, a crack, a weakness, a seam in the crust. And then, one day, that pressure finds its voice. It pushes upward, bursting through stone, emerging into air and light. And what follows is the visible breath of earth fire. Ash, steam and sound. But not all volcanoes look the same. Some rise as sharp cones, like Mount Fuji, elegant and tall, their slopes draped in memory. These are stratovolcanoes, built from many layers of past eruptions, lava, ash, rock, stacked gently over centuries. Each layer tells a story. Each eruption leaves a mark. They are the storytellers of the earth, their shape a silent testimony to time. Others are broader, more gentle in slope, like the shield volcanoes of Hawaii. Here, lava flows like syrup, smooth and wide, creating vast islands with their reach. These volcanoes do not explode in panic or subdue the sea. Each volcano do not explode in panic or subdue the sea. Others are broader, more gentle. They pour, they stretch, they grow. They remind you that not all power must be sudden. Some power is patient, steady, and beautiful in its grace. And then there are volcanoes you cannot see, hidden beneath oceans, beneath ice, even beneath your feet in quiet places. These are fissures, vents, deep-sea chimneys where Earth's breath escapes silently. No towering cone, no dramatic plume, just a warm exhale into the cold black of the sea. All volcanoes begin the same way, with heat rising, with pressure building, with silence turning into movement. And yet, no two are alike. Some erupt with thunder, hurling ash miles into the sky. Some whisper as lava bubbles and slides. Some rest for centuries between breaths. Some breathe more often, more softly, more steadily. You may wonder what makes them speak, what decides the shape and sound of their voice. What decides the shape and sound of their voice? The answer lies in the magma itself. Thicker magma holds more gas, like soda in a sealed bottle. When it erupts, it bursts, explosive, wild, bright with sound and fury, but thinner magma flows, releasing gas with ease. It spills gently, painting the land with fire instead of tearing it. Like moods of a sleeping giant, each volcano expresses what lies within. Some are anxious, some are calm, and some are silent for so long we almost forget they are there. Volcanoes change the world. They build land, new islands rise from oceans. Coasts grow, valleys fill. They shape the air with gases like carbon dioxide and sulfur that drift into the skies, and sometimes they cool the earth. A large eruption can send ash so high it reflects sunlight, dimming the sky for years. Even distant lands may feel the breath of a faraway volcano, but volcanoes also nourish. Their ash, once settled, feeds the soil, rich in minerals. Once lifted feeds the soil. A large infernal feeds the soil. A large infernal feeds the soil. A large infernal feeds the soil. A large ready for life. Crops flourish on volcanic land. Forests grow deep. What seems destructive often carries a promise that, from fire, green may rise. You may think of volcanoes as dangerous, and yes, they can be, but danger is not their purpose. They do not seek to harm, they simply must breathe. Earth is alive, and to live is to change. Tonight, let yourself imagine the breath of Earth rising not in fear, but in wonder. See the red river of lava glowing in the darkness. It is ancient and new at once. It moves slowly, like thought, like time. It hardens into stone, and from stone, one day, grass will grow. Breathe with the earth now. Feel its rhythm under your spine. Know that the ground you sleep upon is not still, but kind. It carries the memory of fire and the promise of green. Volcanoes are Earth's way of remembering itself, its heat, its hunger, its hidden stories. And sometimes those stories rise. But some stories wait even longer. Some gather not in one small cone, but in vast chambers beneath the crust. They are not ordinary volcanoes. They are deeper, broader, older. They sleep longer, and when they wake, the earth changes shape. There is something different about the giants. You feel it not in noise, but in silence, not in flame, but in waiting. You've met volcanoes before, bold, cone-shaped, eager to breathe fire, but tonight you drift deeper into a rarer kind of slumber, where the earth's breath is held far longer, and its dreams unfold on a scale so vast, time must stretch to understand it. You are entering the quiet world of the supervolcano. The word itself feels heavy, almost too large to hold in your mind. Supervolcano. But it doesn't mean taller or more dramatic. It means deeper, broader, older. A kind of volcano that doesn't build a mountain, but swallows one. Unlike the peaks you may picture, these giants often leave behind valleys, not cones. They erupt not upward, but outward, collapsing the land into wide basins called calderas, vast craters that seem peaceful now, filled with trees or lakes, but beneath them lies something ancient, like a caldus. Vast craters that seem peaceful now, filled with trees or lakes, but beneath them lies something ancient, something waiting. You float above one now, in your imagination, a quiet plain, perhaps Yellowstone, perhaps Toba, or Taupo, or Campi Flegrei. The air is cool, the surface is still, birds sing, winds pass gently through the grass. There is no hint of danger, no flame, no smoke, but under that stillness lies a chamber, a magma chamber so vast it stretches for miles, not a small reservoir, but a sea of molten rock. It rests beneath the crust like a sigh held too long, gathering pressure slowly. A magma chamber, so vast it stretches for miles, not a small reservoir, but a sea of molten rock. It rests beneath the crust like a sigh held too long, year after year, age after age. What makes a supervolcano super is not its eruption alone, but the space it occupies before it erupts. Imagine the crust of the earth like the skin of a drum. A regular volcano taps it, here and there quick, sharp beats that make the surface tremble, but a supervolcano lets the pressure build and build until the crust swells like a stretched balloon. And when that drumskin finally gives way, it is not a tap, it is a shattering. An ordinary eruption might blanket a nearby mountain with ash. A supervolcano covers entire regions, ash drifting for thousands of miles, skies dimmed, temperatures dropped. A breath not just felt, but remembered by the planet itself. But these events are rare, so rare that none have happened in human memory. The last great eruption was over 26,000 years ago, long before cities, long before writing, and yet we see the echoes in the rocks, along with the terror of the last 26,000 years ago, long before cities, long before writing, and yet we see the echoes in the rocks, the traces left behind like fingerprints in cooled clay. Scientists measure these eruptions using something called the Volcanic Explosivity Index, or VEI, a quiet name for such powerful events. To be super, an eruption must store an 8, releasing over 1,000 cubic kilometers of material. That's enough to fill more than 400 million Olympic swimming pools. More than entire mountain chains sometimes pour out in a single breath, and yet, even with such force, the most remarkable thing about a supervolcano is its patience. It sleeps for tens of thousands of years, gathering magma drop by drop, waiting for the right tension, the right moment. Sometimes it never comes. Some chambers cool and harden without ever erupting. The giant goes back to sleep. You may ask, how do we know they're there, if they've been silent for so long? We listen, we watch. Geologists read the land like a gentle book, measuring tiny rises in the ground, collecting gases that escape like whispers, recording tremors that last only seconds. And they look back at layers of ash in distant cliffs, at fossils trapped mid-slight, at ancient rings in trees that stopped growing when the skies darkened. All of this tells the story of what once was and what might one day be. Still, supervolcanoes are not to be feared in the dark of night. They are to be understood. They do not surprise. They prepare. Their breath is slow. Their signs are many. And most of all, they are rare. You float now in a place between fear and wonder, a place where Earth's power doesn't roar, it waits. A mountain may rise in your lifetime, a river may change course, but a supervolcano, it measures time in a language far older than ours. As you drift, think of the land beneath you not as a threat, but as a being, ancient, wise, careful with its strength. It knows when to speak and when to be still, and for now it is still. Yet even in that stillness there are questions that rise like warm air. What lies beneath places like Yellowstone? How do we know what simmers there? What does it mean to sleep above something so vast, so quietly alive? Perhaps the next step in your journey is to visit one of these places, to walk its forests, to feel the steam rising from the soil, to hear the soft heartbeat of the land. Come, let's go to Yellowstone, where the ground is warm and the past still whispers through geysers and springs. You are still, lying beneath the sky, and the world above you sleeps. But far away, nestled in the soft cradle of the American West, a landscape breathes in silence, warmed from within. This is Yellowstone, a place of quiet beauty and hidden fire. Imagine yourself there now. You're walking slowly through tall grasses, swaying in the breeze. Steam curls upward from the ground in silver ribbons. The air smells faintly of minerals and warmth, a mixture of life and something older. From the ground in silver ribbons, the air smells faintly of minerals and warmth, a mixture of life and something older. The air smells faintly of minerals and warmth, a mixture of life and something older, a very small subset of life, something older, a very small subset of life. Deeper around you are forests, rivers, wide blue skies. Elk move through the meadows, their hooves soft on volcanic soil. Wolves watch from afar. Eagles circle. Everything here feels ancient and alive. But beneath this peaceful surface lies a story, a heartbeat not loud, not alarming, just steady, slow, and strong. It comes from deep underground, where a vast plume of heat rises from the mantle toward the crust like a candle warming wax. This heat is not angry, it's steady, tortured, dark, not loud, not tortured, not fire springing from above, not the speed of light. It's deadly, persistent, a quiet force shaping the land above. You walk on land shaped by fire and time, the geysers that erupt in great arcs of steam. Old Faithful, Castle, Grand Geyser. They are the breath of water heated by rock. Hot springs bloom in colors that look unreal. Deep blue pools, edged with bright oranges and greens, painted by heat-loving microbes and the minerals they stir. This geothermal wonderland is not just a spectacle, it's a signal, a sign that something warmer, deeper, more fertile, more substantial, more fulfilling, more pleasant, more pure, more green, pleasant, pure, more fulfilling, unfettered, confident, solid, simple, more patient is at work. Yellowstone sits atop a supervolcano, not one that screams or shouts, but one that dreams in pressure and time. Beneath the park is a colossal magma chamber, stretching for miles, resting quietly beneath your steps. It is not full of boiling lava, but of semi-molten rock, thick and warm, like honey that refuses to boil. Scientists study this place closely. They measure how the ground rises and falls, breathing in, breathing out, by mere inches over years. They listen to tiny earthquakes, soft murmurs of shifting rock, as if the earth were rolling over in its sleep. And still, there is peace. No eruption is imminent. No disaster looms. The land is warm, not wild. You sit beside a hot spring, steam wrapping round your arms. It feels like a bath drawn by the planet for no one in particular, just another part of its quiet care. Beneath the surface, the magma rests, not threatening, and beneath the surface, the magma rests, not threatening, but present. It is like a sleeping animal, its breath slow, its eyes closed, but very much alive. Volcanologists track it with care, mapping its edges, listening for changes. They understand that this is not a place to fear, but a place to respect, to observe, to learn from, to protect. Over thousands of years, Yellowstone has erupted more than once. Its eruptions were vast, so vast they reshaped rivers, buried valleys, and scattered ash from coast to coast. But each of those breaths was separated by hundreds of millennia, and between them they passed on their own unseen and unimaginable truth in joy, profound pain, pain and peace, pain, perfect peace, perfect peace, perfect peace, primal, within, power, consciousness, known now to most as doubt, curiosity, prayer, within, man's soul, silence, growth, regeneration. Even now, the land is healing from those ancient pulses. Trees grow where ash once fell. Animals graze where lava once flowed. Life has returned, and in some places never left. As you lie back and imagine the night sky above this place, you feel the balance of something powerful and kind. Yellowstone is not a threat. It is a reminder that even the strongest forces can be quiet. Even the deepest powers can rest. You trace the outline of the caldera, not a crater. And as you trace the outline of the caldera, not a crater, but a gentle bowl of land, formed not by explosion, but by the earth sinking softly after it had released its breath. This place teaches you something about patience, about the time it takes for pressure to build, for change to unfold, and how, even in stillness, a story continues to grow. Steam rises from the ground like thoughts, unspoken but present. The land remembers. It holds memory in warmth, in layers of rock, in tiny gas bubbles trapped in crystal. Yellowstone is more than a park. It's a pulse, a gentle rhythm in the body of the earth. You breathe with it now, slowly, evenly, calmly. And as you do, you begin to wonder what other memories are buried in stone. What other breaths has the earth taken long before we could record them? If Yellowstone whispers in warmth, then perhaps the past speaks louder in ash. What stories lie hidden in the rock rocks, waiting for us to listen. Perhaps the past speaks louder in ash. What stories lie hidden in the rocks, waiting for us to listen? You walk softly now, as if the ground beneath your feet is listening, and, in a way, it is. For buried within the earth are stories, etched not in ink but in stone, not written by hand, but shaped by fire, water, time. The earth does not forget. It holds on to its memories in layers, each stratum a page, each rock a sentence. And as you drift through this quiet chapter, you begin to read these memories, not with your eyes, but with your breath and your presence. Somewhere, in a wind-swept canyon, with your mind in the sea, brought to this recepts by the sound of flowers. Somewhere, in a wind-swept canyon, for the sound of flowers. Somewhere, in a cliff face rises before you, like a library without words. The colors change as your gaze moves upward, grey, brown, ochre, a soft line of black. Each stripe is a moment from long ago. Each layer is the result of a world in motion. You come across a band of fine ash, pressed tight between older, darker rock. It is pale and powdery, even after all these millennia. This, too, is the aftermath of a breath, a super-eruption that blanketed the sky, turning day to twilight, cooling the land, changing the course of life itself. The ash travelled far, floating across oceans, drifting down on forests, settling into lakes where it sank and waited to be buried, pressed, turned to stone. Now it speaks without sound. It tells you there was a time when the earth exhaled not just heat, but history carried on the wind. You keep walking. The landscape shifts in your mind from cliffs to plains to the edge of a prehistoric lake. You crouch down, run your fingers through soft layers of silt. Hidden there are tiny clues, pollen, trapped bubbles of air, grains of volcanic glass. They are fragile, but they endure. Scientists study these clues with quiet reverence. Each grain is like a key, unlocking temperature, light, chemistry. From the chemistry of the ash, they can trace it back to its source, to its eruption, to the exact moment the sky turned grey. You follow them to Toba, a supervolcano in Indonesia that once changed the world. Around 74,000 years ago, it erupted with a force unimaginable. It cast ash across continents, darkened the skies for years, and left behind a caldera the size of a sea. Some say it nearly ended humanity. Others say we adapted, we moved, we learned. Whatever the truth, one thing is certain. The earth remembers it. And now, so do you. You picture the ancient forests, buried beneath meters of ash, trees frozen mid-growth, packed dirt into the Scorian Sea. And now, so do you. You picture the ancient forests, buried beneath meters of ash, trees frozen mid-growth, packed dirt into the Scorian Sea. And now so do you, leaves scorched to shadows. And yet, even in that silence, life returned. The forests regrew, the animals came back, the land healed, slowly, patiently, without forgetting. That's the rhythm of earth destruction followed by renewal. Silence that makes room for song. Farther north, you visit the remains of the Taupo eruption in New Zealand. a blast so powerful it lit up the sky over China. A crater became a lake, a scar becomes story, and the land, it became green again. You begin to notice how the earth not only remembers its wounds, it reshapes them into beauty. Calderas become valleys where flowers bloom. Volcanic plains become vineyards, fertile and rich. Ash becomes soil. The end of one chapter becomes the beginning of another. And through it all, the rocks whisper. They do not warn, they remind. Gently even now, there are quiet echoes in the rocks you walk on. Echoes of Tambora in 1815, when the sky turned dark. It takes the same tone, the same language, the same luster, the same key, when the sky turned dark and snow fell in summer. Echoes of Mount Mazama, whose eruption formed Crater Lake. Echoes of long-lost volcanoes that left behind only their shadows in stone. You begin to feel that time isn't a straight path, but a spiral, each turn echoing with what came before. The earth doesn't simply move forward. It circles, returns, remembers, and you, small and soft among these stones, you are part of that memory too. Your bones hold calcium from ancient seas. Your breath carries oxygen made by forests grown in volcanic soil. You are built from what came before, from ash, from stone, from time. The past is not gone. It is folded into the present, like minerals in a rock, like roots beneath the forest floor. As the chapter draws near its end, you sit quietly beside a boulder flecked with tiny crystals. It is warm from the sun. It has seen more sunsets than all of humankind. You place your palm against it, feeling not its heat, but its patience. You wonder if we can hear the earth's memory in stone. Can we also learn to listen for its future? If rocks remember what has passed, what tells us what may come next? Time feels different when you're lying still. It stretches, softens, slows down. The ticking of your thoughts grows quiet. You begin to notice the space between moments, the rhythm that lives beneath the surface of now. Deep in the earth, time behaves differently too. It doesn't tick like a clock on a wall. It doesn't count down or count up. It pools and gathers, rises and recedes like breath, like tides. And yet, even here, within the warmth of molten stone, there is a kind of clock, not one with hands or bells, but a magma clock measured in pressure, in motion, in patient signs. You float downward now, gently, into a hidden chamber beneath the crust. This is where the magma lives, not in anger but in waiting. A thick, glowing presence, slow and thoughtful. It doesn't rush. It listens to the earth above, to the weight of mountains, to the cold whisper of rain falling on soil. And above it, we listen too. Scientists are the timekeepers of this clock. They do not wind it, they observe it, and through many quiet tools they hear it speak. One of those tools is ground deformation. That's a gentle way of saying the land is moving, not by inches in a day, but in slow swelling, like a balloon being filled. Little by little, when magma rises, it pushes gently against the crust. Sometimes the land lifts by a few millimeters, sometimes by feet. It's like the earth inhaling, though no one hears it breathe. In Yellowstone, for instance, the ground can rise and fall in slow pulses, sometimes as much as 7 inches in just a few years. Then, just as slowly, it settles again, like a sigh exhaled. Another sign is the soft tremble of earthquakes, not the violent kind that shakes cities, but the whispering kind, the kind you'd only notice with machines tuned to stillness. These tiny earthquakes, called volcanic tremors, are part of the magma's language. They happen when rock breaks, when gases escape, when molten rock begins to stir in the deep. You listen, too, not with machines, but with your imagination. You hear the ticking of this magma clock in rhythms, in patterns, so slow they feel like lullabies. There are other clues, like changes in gases rising from the ground, carbon dioxide, sulfur dioxide, water vapor. They drift upward long before any eruption begins, escaping through cracks, carried by wind, detected by silent instruments. Each gas has a voice, each tells a part of the story. Some gases rise more when magma is close to the surface, some vanish when pressure shifts. Even satellites help keep time. Now they watch from space, measuring heat and movement from afar, tracking changes in temperature on the skin of the Earth. A quiet partnership between orbit and crust, and still all these signs rising land, tremors, gases, heat, they are not predictions, they are possibilities. They are murmurs, they rise in land, tremors, gases, heat, they are murmurs, they rise in land, tremors, gases, heat, they are murmurs, they rise in land, tremors, gases, heat, they are murmurs, not schedules. The magma clock doesn't give appointments, it keeps its own time, its own logic, unfolding over years, centuries, sometimes millennia. Some volcanoes show all the signs and stay asleep. Others give only whispers before waking. That's the humbling part. We can watch, we can listen, but we cannot control. This teaches you something important, not just about volcanoes, but about the world itself, that not all danger comes with a warning, not all waiting is worry. Sometimes it's just the earth being itself. You drift now, imagining what it feels like to live near a sleeping giant, to grow up in a town near a caldera, to walk on ground that slowly rises, to live with one eye on the land and one on the sky. It sounds unsettling, but it's also beautiful, because people adapt. They learn to understand the signs. They build instruments, stories, cultures that honor the rhythms of the earth. Time is not only in clocks, it is in trees, in rivers, in magma rising quietly beneath your feet. You too carry your own inner clock. Your heart beats slowly now. Your breath moves in soft waves. And somewhere inside you, you carry the same rhythms, slow, deep, full of memory. The magma clock continues to tick, not forward or back, but outward in swelling rock, in shifting plates, in the slow readiness of change. And though we cannot read it perfectly, we can still listen, we can still prepare, we can still wonder. You lie still now, thinking not of eruptions, but of readiness, the way the earth watches itself, the way people learn to feel its movements without needing to rush or fear. Time here is quiet. a language written in layers, spoken in pulses, sung in stone. You wonder now if pressure builds slowly and land can rise. What happens when that pressure moves sideways instead of upward? What happens not in fire, but in fractures? What happens not in fire, but in fractures? Ash falls like snow, but it doesn't melt. It lingers, soft at first, then heavy, covering the ground in grey, silencing the colour of the world. The trees stop singing, the sky glows dim, and everything waits. But ash is not the end. It is the pause between chapters, a veil, not a wall. You walk gently now across a world recently changed, still quiet but not lifeless. The land beneath the ash is warm, not with fire anymore, but with memory. You kneel and scoop a handful of ash, let it drift through your fingers. It feels like dust, but richer. Minerals from deep inside the earth now lie on the surface, ready to feed what will come next. In time, the ash weaves into the soil. It carries potassium, phosphorus, calcium, the secret ingredients of growth. The same eruption that stripped the forest bare has also laid the groundwork for something new. And so it begins again. Tiny mosses first, brave and green. They do not ask for much, just light, just time. Then come ferns, some strayed brave and green. They do not ask for much, some sculpting. Tiny mosses first, brave and green. They do not ask for much, some sculpting. The seed, their curled fronds unfurling like careful questions. You walk through this place, feeling not despair, but rhythm, not ruin, but rest. Life returns slowly, not as a roar, but as a whisper. A single bird appears, perching on a blackened branch, then another. Their songs are soft, hesitant, like memories trying to find their way back. Farther ahead, seeds stir. Some were buried too deep to burn. Some waited in silence, knowing this would come. Their roots reach downward. Some waited in silence, knowing this would come. Their roots reach downward. Some waited in silence, knowing this would come. Their roots reach downward. Some wait into the cooled earth. Their stems reach up into the clean, ash-dusted air. You watch them grow. You don't rush them. The earth doesn't. Over the years, the forest returns. Different, yes, but not less. New species arrive. Animals that never lived here before find shelter in the change. The ecosystem reshapes itself, like a new story, built from the ashes of the old. This is how life works, not in perfection, but in resilience. Not in stopping the fire, when it's stopping the fire, but in learning how to grow after it. You think of Mount Helens, how, after its eruption, the land was silent, how it looked like a lunar surface, grey and broken. And yet, only a few years later, flowers bloomed in its shadow, elk wandered its ridges, trees rose again. The volcano had not destroyed the land, it had transformed it. And this transformation is not only physical, it is emotional, spiritual. It reminds you that endings are not always endings. They are spaces, openings, where something new can take hold. You lie down now on a hillside, still laced with pale ash. It no longer chokes the air. It has settled. It has become part of the ground beneath you. The roots are already drinking from it, turning memory into nourishment. Ash is a kind of inheritance, passed from the earth to its surface, from past to future. It reminds us that what looks lifeless can hold all the ingredients for life, even now. Scientists study these cycles. They watch the land after eruptions. They track which plants return first, which animals follow. They learn from the pace of the forest, the patience of the soil, and in these observations, the passions follow the pain of the soul, and in these observations, we learn from the pace of the forest, the patience of the soil, and in these observations there is comfort, because what burns does not vanish, what falls can rise again, and you, as part of this living planet, you carry that same rhythm. Your own life may feel covered in ash sometimes, still, grey, without clear direction, but even in those quiet seasons, something is growing, something small and green and steady. You breathe slowly now, surrounded by soft wind and open space. You don't need to fix anything, you only need to notice that healing is quiet, that recovery has no deadline. Life comes back, not because it must, but because it can. And just as the earth keeps this rhythm, so do you. But not everything that stirs after the ash is new life. Some things awaken beneath the surface, in silence. They do not sprout, they shift, they slip, they stretch. What happens, you wonder, when the earth's pressure doesn't rise upward, but sideways? What happens, you wonder, when the earth's pressure doesn't rise upward, but sideways? What happens, you wonder, when the earth's pressure doesn't? You lie still now, like a leaf floating on still water. The world around you feels hushed, not silent, but soft, like something sacred is being spoken, just below the edge of hearing. This is where listening begins, not with ears alone, but with attention, with presence, with the kind of stillness that lets the earth speak in its own voice. Because the earth does not warn with thunder. It does not always announce itself in flames or floods. More often, it whispers in slow tilts, subtle heat, quiet cracks beneath your feet. You rest your palm against the ground. The soil is cool and steady, but beneath it, motion never stops. Tectonic plates slide past each other in glacial grace. Gas rises in invisible threads. Water finds new paths in the rock. These are the whispers of the earth. And if you listen carefully, you'll hear what they're saying. Seismometers, spread like a quiet net across the planet, pick up vibrations smaller than a sigh. They hear the earth tremble when magma shifts, when rock breaks, when pressure seeks a path. These instruments don't sleep. They record each second like a diary, filled not with words, but with waves. Some waves move fast, a snap, a ripple, a sudden shift. Others roll deep and slow, like the planet turning in a dream. Infrasound sensors catch vibrations in the air, frequencies too low for human ear, yet filled with meaning. These are the sounds of distant eruptions, rolling across oceans and deserts, as if the earth were whispering from far away. You learn that scientists can even listen to volcanoes breathing. Some exhale quietly through steaming vents, not danger, but presence. Others rumble with low tones, like a cello warming up before the bow is drawn. These sounds aren't just noise, they are stories, signal conversations. Gas monitors track the breath of the land, a change in carbon dioxide, a rise in sulfur, tiny shifts that tell of heat rising, of pressure growing. Satellite radar watches the ground itself. It sees a bulge in a caldera, a crack near a fault, a landscape stretching ever so slightly. And all of this, together, becomes a kind of language, not of words, but of patterns. Patterns that tell us where the earth holds tension, where it heals, where it stirs. You walk now through a forest near a sleeping volcano. Bird song blends with the rustling of leaves. To your senses, all feels calm, but beneath your feet, a team of instruments is listening. A symphony of senses picking up the slow heartbeat of the world. It's not just scientists who listen. People who live near volcanoes learn the land's rhythm. They notice when water grows warmer, when steam changes scent, when animals move differently. Their memories, passed from parent to child, hold knowledge deeper than charts. They remember the last eruption, not just in history books, but in stories, in songs, in sacred ground. This human listening is just as valuable as any machine. It is feeling, trust, tradition, woven into daily life. You begin to understand something now, that science is not always fast, that answers do not arrive with fanfare. Sometimes truth is revealed only to those who wait quietly. The earth doesn't operate on human time. It moves in centuries, in epochs, in slow pulses of change, but it always speaks, and when we learn to listen, truly listen, we can prepare, we can adapt, we can live in harmony with a planet that is always becoming. You sit beside a small vent, where steam rises gently into the cool air. It smells faintly of minerals, of something deep and pure, not threatening, just present. The vent hisses in a soft, steady rhythm, like the earth breathing in its sleep. You close your eyes and listen, not just to the sound, but to what it makes you feel. Connected, grounded, humbled. The whispers of the earth are not secrets, they're invitations to notice, to care, to remember that we live not on the earth, but with it. You breathe in slowly, the ground is quiet now, but never still, and you begin to wonder if the earth can whisper. Can it also surprise us? What happens when a quiet voice becomes a sudden change? You sit quietly now, wrapped in a blanket of stars and questions. The night is calm, but your thoughts drift to deeper places, to sleeping giants, to ancient fires, to buried time. Will it happen again? That is the question, soft as a breath, but heavy as stone. You do not ask it in panic, you ask it in wonder, because to know the earth is to know its rhythms, its repetitions, its quiet returns. The past leaves clues in ash that still rests beneath old soil, in lake beds layered with time, in tree rings marked by sudden cold, by summers lost beneath a dust-dimmed sun. From these signs, Scientists gather stories, not certainties, but patterns. They study eruption intervals, the sun's alarms, marked by science and patterns. They study eruption intervals, they study sunsets, gather stories, not certainties, but patterns. They study eruption intervals, they study sunsets, gather stories, not like a lullaby, with a long pause between verses. They trace the rise and fall of magma chambers, through ground deformation, through chemical whispers in hot springs, through the gentle shiver of seismic sighs. And yet, no clock counts down, no red circle on a calendar tells us, now. You learn that some supervolcanoes, like Yellowstone, have erupted more than once, the oldest 21 million years ago, then another 13 million years ago, and again about 640,000 years ago. That pattern is not a promise, only a possibility. The magma below Yellowstone still stirs, but slowly. The land still breathes, but not urgently. We watch, we measure, but we do not predict with precision. The earth speaks in probabilities. The sun slips slowly, but not urgently. We watch, we measure, but we do not predict with precision. The earth speaks in probabilities. The sun slips slowly, but not urgently. We watch, we measure, but we not prophecies. And so we ask the question not just of when, but how often. We calculate the odds as best we can with the data we have and the humility we need. Some say a super eruption may happen once every 100,000 years. Others suggest rarer intervals. Still others remind us we've only seen the tiniest slice of Earth's long memory. Your thoughts stretch wide, like the sky above you. You realize that waiting is part of what it means to live on this planet. Not anxious waiting, but anxiously uncertain time. Unmanaging attention means giving ourselves the grace of birth's long memory. Your thoughts stretch wide, like the sky above you. You realize that waiting is part of what it means to live on this planet, but attentive waiting, prepared but not panicked, like farmers watching the horizon for rain, like sailors reading stars, like parents listening for a baby's breath in the dark. You begin to see that Earth's story is not written in warnings, but in balance. It creates, it destroys, it rests, it renews, and every now and then it reminds us that we are not the only ones who decide. You walk now through a museum, quiet and dim. Glass cases hold fragments of past eruptions, obsidian blades, fossilized leaves curled in ash, maps of ancient eruptions traced in delicate red lines. Each artifact tells you it has happened, and in time it could happen again. But fear does not live here, only memory and preparation. You think of the scientists working quietly beneath distant mountains, checking gas levels, tuning instruments, refining models. You think of communities who know their land, who tell stories that blend myth and geology, of people who plant gardens on slopes that once held fire, now tell what, trusting the soil to be kind again. You begin to understand that living with volcanoes is not a question of if, but of how. How do we live in relationship with this living earth? How do we balance respect with curiosity, readiness with wonder, You feel the steady beat of your own heart now, regular, calm, and you realize that the earth has one too, not in seconds or minutes, but in centuries and cycles. Your mind drifts to the idea of resilience, not just bouncing back, but adapting, growing wiser with each change. You remember how forests returned after ash, how life came back in new forms. You remember how magma rises slowly, giving clues if we are listening. And so the question remains, will it happen again? Yes, in some form, someday. But that does not mean fear. It means attention. It means readiness without restlessness. It means being part of something older than worry, something vast and alive. You lie back now, gazing into the sky. You feel the earth beneath you, solid, moving, quiet, breathing. And as your breath slows, you wonder if the earth remembers what it has done, and if we are listening more closely than ever before, then maybe the next question is not if, but when. No longer are we the earth, but the first, as we know what it has done, and if we are listening more closely than ever before, then maybe the next question is not if, but when. But how will we respond when the ground begins to change again? You sit very still. Your body is quiet now, and so is your breath. The world around you fades into softness, the hum of a distant breeze, the whisper of your heartbeat. Beneath you there is earth, cool, solid, familiar. The ground feels steady, like it has always been here, and always will be. But stillness, you begin to realize, is not the same as silence. And the ground, though firm, is not unmoving. It only appears that way because the movement is so deep, so slow, and the ground, though firm, is not unmoving. It only appears that way because the movement is so deep, so slow, and the ground, though firm, is not unmoving. It only appears that way because the movement is so deep, so constant that we forget it is happening at all. The earth is always shifting, not in dramatic ways, not always in quakes or flames, but in the subtle language of plates drifting, of minerals flowing, of magma folding and cooling in secret places. You lie back now, imagining what lives below the crust, miles below your spine, beneath stone and pressure. There is warmth, there is motion, there is life, not in the form we know, but in the pulse of molten rock and the silent push of continents on a journey without end. The tectonic plates that hold our mountains and oceans float like slow-moving rafts on a sea of mantle. They touch, they drift, they pull apart like dancers who never stop their slow, ancient waltz. Sometimes they grind past each other at the edges we call faults. Sometimes they collide and lift the land into peaks, and sometimes they collide and lift the land into peaks, and sometimes they grind past each other at the edges we call faults. Sometimes they grind past each other at the edges we call faults. Sometimes they grind past each other at the edges we call faults, leaving behind deep scars that fill with water and become oceans. This is the stillness beneath us, a paradox, a moving calm, a steady rhythm of change that doesn't seek attention. It simply is. You think of the way your own body holds stillness. When you sleep, your breath is soft, your limbs quiet, but inside, your heart still beats, your cells still work, your mind still dreams. The earth is no different. Even in rest, it creates. Even in silence, it moves. There are places beneath us where ancient slabs of crust sink slowly into the mantle, a process called subduction. There, in the deep, rock is recycled, melted, and reborn over millions of years. No explosion, no warning, only the long patience of stone becoming stone again. And in some places, magma rises gently toward the crust, but never erupts. It cools slowly underground, forming vast chambers of granite, veins of minerals, invisible monuments to time we cannot measure. You walk now across a grassy field, but your mind is down in the layers below. You picture the soft boundary between crust and mantle, the moho, a transition not marked by light, but by change in sound and pressure. Down there, the rocks begin to flow, like warm honey under weight, not liquid, not solid, but something in between, something that reminds you that categories can blur, and that truth often lies in the space between. The deeper you imagine, uncertain and unmeasured, the more you fall. The longer, the soft effects of light, but warmed by a skill. The same likeness that made you see and love your son with the same love that the more you begin to understand, this planet is not just where we live, it is a living thing itself, slow, vast, and breathing in a way you're just beginning to hear. Sometimes we focus only on what erupts, the fire, the ash, the noise, but there is equal wonder in what remains unspoken, in the magma that waits, in the rock that bends but does not break, in the valleys that sink inch by inch over centuries. You realize something now. Stillness is not the opposite of change. It is a kind of change that asks for your trust. It does not shout, it does not rush, but it works always gently toward balance. And that is what the earth seeks, beneath all the movement and eruption. Balance, even after fire, even after quakes, it settles, it heals, it begins again, eyes closed, and you feel held by gravity, by layers of stone, by all the silent histories wrapped up beneath your body. Your breath matches the slow exhale of time, and you wonder if so much is happening in the stillness beneath you, then maybe there is stillness in the sky above as well, not empty, but waiting, moving gently in silence just like the earth below. And so your thoughts drift upward now, toward a quieter kind of fire, not from deep underground, but from deep in space. A sigh of support, no, toward a quieter kind of fire, not from deep underground, but from deep in space. A sigh of support, no, toward a quieter kind of fire, not from deep in space. A sigh of support, no,